Once upon a time, there lived a king called Sabo. Sabo was extremely rich and had a huge amount of gold. Sabo had every great things a king should have. But Sabo wasn't happy at all. Because his children that were to inherit his kingdom and vast of wealth were extremely lazy and dull. They couldn't even read nor write. And this got Sabo so worried. Sabo had visited so many kings and saw how intelligent their children were, and his own children were extremely dull. Sabo had spent a lot of money on scholars and teachers to teach his children, but yet all effort wasn't yielding any positive result, and this made Sabo so unhappy. So Sabo decided to go on a tour to search for solution to his children's problems. Sabo went round different villages seeking for solution. Sabo, who was already aging, was ready to do anything to help his children. So in his quest, he came across an herbalist called Kojo, who was a renowned herbalist and a magician. Kojo said, "I've seen you wandering from one village to another. What do you seek?" And King Sabo replied by saying, "I have 3 children called Keke, Ojo, and Tai, and I'm closely edging towards my grave. And none of them is intelligent enough to succeed me. Have been wandering around for 7 years for solution." The herbalist replied by saying, "I am going to help you. I will take the 3 boys and train them and also teach them how to read and write, and I will make them great scholars and great leaders." "But what will you give me in return?" the herbalist said. King Sabo replied by saying, "I will give you half of my property." "No," said the herbalist, "that won't be enough." "Okay, I will give you half of my town," said King Sabo. "That won't be enough either," replied the herbalist. And King Sabo said, "I will give you 500 boxes of gold." "That won't satisfy me," the herbalist said. "So what do you really want?" King Sabo replied. And Kojo the herbalist said, "If I train them and they become great scholars and great leaders, I will bring them back to you to choose 2 for yourself, and you will give me the 3rd one for myself for companion. I want a companion of my own." King Sabo, on hearing the herbalist's proposal, wasn't happy but had no choice. King Sabo sent for the 3 children and handed them over to the herbalist for training. After 6 years of several training and coaching, the 3 children became great scholars and they were extremely intelligent. So Kojo the herbalist returned the 3 children for King Sabo to choose. King Sabo picked Keke and Odo and handed over Tai to the herbalist for companion. The king made his choice out of the 3 children and handed over the last child to the herbalist. And he told the child, "From today henceforth, the herbalist is now your father." The child was happy as he has already spent 6 years with the herbalist and he has fell in love with him because he was kind, gentle, and has a good heart. King Sabo called all the villagers far and near to witness the celebration and made a great meal for everyone to eat and make merry. After the celebration, the herbalist left with the last child called Tai that was handed over to him by King Sabo. The herbalist, who was more interested in having a companion, had lost his wife in the past while giving birth, and he was left alone, so the joy to have a son that we call him father was so overwhelming. So the Abalis left with Tai and groomed him to become a great seer and a great philosopher. And Tai was known throughout the entire kingdom. And the Abalis, his newfound father, was so proud of him. King Sabo's two children, Keke and Ojo, were groomed in the palace to become great leaders. And they were known for their great decision making. Few years later, King Sabo's two children, Keke and Ojo, contracted a very strange virus. The virus was so serious that they could not talk, eat, nor move. King Sabo became so worried and was extremely sad. King Sabo took them to the best physician in the entire kingdom, but there was no solution. King Sabo, who was already aging, became so frustrated with life. The illness got worse, and after 3 years, Keke and Ojo died. King Sabo, who was so sad, cried all through the night as the heir to his throne were all gone. The entire kingdom was cold and everyone was pushed into mourning. King Sabo, who needed someone to succeed him immediately, spoke to his kingsmen that he is already aging and there is no one to succeed the throne. So one of the king's men said, "What about your son Tai, the one you gave the Abalis? He is now a seer, and the boy has grown up to be one of the most talented youth in this community." King Sabo, on hearing this, became so envious and wanted the boy back. So King Sabo immediately sent for the Abalis. Few minutes later, the Abalis arrived at King Sabo's palace. The Abalis greeted King Sabo and told King Sabo that "I am sorry for your loss." King Sabo replied and quickly moved to the reason why he asked the Abalis to come. And King Sabo said, "A huge tragedy has befallen me. I am now left with no heir to the throne. And that was the reason why I sent for you." The herbalist was so clever that he knew what King Sabo was actually trying to say. And he further told King Sabo that he should please go straight to the point. And then King Sabo replied by saying, "I want you to hand over my child back to me, to succeed me as the heir to the throne. Mention whatever you want and I will hand it over to you in exchange for my child back." The herbalist kept mute for a while as he was so surprised of what King Sabo was asking for. And so the herbalist said, "I am not interested in gold nor land. Besides, we've had an agreement that needed to be respected. Yes, we've had an agreement, but I just lost my two children, and one of my child is in your possession, so I need my child back. So it's either you hand him over, or I shall take him by force," said King Sabo. "Because the child belongs to me," said King Sabo. Then the herbalist said, "My king, I'm not going to hand him over to you, and no amount of pressure will make me do that." The king felt disrespected and ordered his guard to seize him. The herbalist was arrested and was taken into custody. The herbalist was locked up without food nor water, and he was being beaten and maltreated on a regular basis so as to give up the child, but yet the herbalist refused. So King Sabo decided to drug the herbalist so that when the herbalist see the child, he would not recognize Tai and he would not know what to say. And so King Sabo summoned all the elders in the village and gave them gold in order to lie that the child had been kidnapped right from birth by the herbalist. Tai, who had not seen the herbalist, his father, for days, decided to go out in search for him. So one of his friends told him, Tai, your father had been locked up by the king. Tai, on hearing this, was not happy at all, so he decided to rush down to the king's palace. On getting to the king's palace, King Sabo quickly heard the news that Tai is at the gate. So King Sabo quickly rushed out to hug Tai. King Sabo rushed quickly to the gate and hugged Tai, saying, "Welcome home, my son." Tai, who was so confused on hearing the king calling him son, and then Tai quickly said, "I'm not your son, please, where is my father?" So the king ordered the guards to bring the herbalist. At this point, the herbalist had been drugged and he couldn't recognize Tai anymore. And so the king said, "This old man standing here is not your father. I am your real father. The herbalist had kidnapped you when you were born and has hid you away for a very long time from your rightful father." Tai, on hearing this, looked at the herbalist and said, "Is that true?" The herbalist, who was drugged and was looking so confused, replied by saying, "I don't know." Tai became so frustrated with the herbalist's response and quickly ran out of the palace crying. So he went out to the street asking every individual he sees, and everyone Tai had met will tell him the same thing the king was saying. "Your real father is the king. The herbalist only kidnapped you while you were a baby." Tai was so confused and frustrated as everyone in the village, along with the king, were all speaking the same tune. Tai got tired of seeking for answers and decided to rush back to the king. This time, the king had sentenced the herbalist to death. Tai, who knelt down and pleaded with King Sabo not to kill the herbalist, only for King Sabo to reply, "The penalty for kidnapping is death." Tai, who was left with no choice as everyone in the village were all shouting, "Thief, kill him! Thief, kill him!" Tai, who couldn't witness the occasion, quickly left the scene as everyone who came to witness the death of the herbalist were all in support of the king to kill him. So the king asked the herbalist if he has any final words. And the herbalist said, "All I ever wanted was a companion. And that was my crime." And so the herbalist said, "If I wasn't given this boy willingly, may I not rest well. But if this boy was given to me willingly, may this village cease to exist after my death." Suddenly, the entire villagers picked up stone and started throwing it at the herbalist, asking him to keep his mouth shut. And so a rope was placed on the herbalist's neck and the herbalist gave up the ghost instantly. Tai, who couldn't witness this occasion, had left the scene to cry in his room. King Sabo, who was so happy as he finally has an heir to the throne and there is nobody who is going to drag the boy with him. After the death of the herbalist, King Sabo announced the date for Tai's coronation. Tai, who wasn't interested in being a king, was left with no choice but to accept the crown. Few weeks to the coronation, it began raining heavily for days non-stop. The kind of rain they had never seen before befall the village, and in no time the entire village was flooded. Everyone started losing their properties, animals, and children, as the flood was beyond ordinary. The whole village were all running for their lives. And soon the flood got to the palace. King Sabo, who couldn't run, got drowned. And the entire village was swallowed by flood due to greed, envy, and jealousy.